Hey everybody! After having so much fun with my Niche Nook episodes so far, I thought I'd give another field that I love a try. Comic books! Yes, on top of being a huge gamer, I'm also a big comic book fan, as well as a big music and vinyl fan, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yet. As comic lovers know, there's a huge treasure trove of material out there to talk about, but simply not enough time to cover it all. With that said, I will make it my goal to focus on titles and stories that I believe are worth discussing, both the good and the bad, the known and the unknown. In this video, I'll be talking about the story arc that literally got me back into comic books in the first place. Amazing Spider-Man, Coming Home. J. Michael Straczynski, writer of Babylon 5 and other television, book, and comic projects, began his run on Amazing Spider-Man in 2001. Straczynski was coming into this series after multiple hiccups in rebooting the entire franchise. Negative reaction to the Clone Saga had brought readership down in droves and led to a really shaky restart by John Byrne and Howard Mackie, which was considered arguably worse by some fans. While the Clone Saga pushed boundaries that many thought should never have been established in the first place, myself included, Byrne and Mackie's run did the exact opposite, playing it safe. So safe, in fact, that fans quickly grew bored of the whole ordeal. Once again, myself included. And so then in came Straczynski, and boy did he bring some bold ideas with him. Some great and some questionable, but that's another story for another day. For now, we're here to talk about the beginning of his run, with issues 30 through 35 in the Volume 2 numbering, or if you're going by the Volume 1 numbering, 471 through 475. I'll be covering issue 30 in this video, and we'll do one issue for each subsequent video. Enjoy! We start off with an answering machine. Aunt May tries to reach out to Peter, concerned about him after Mary Jane recently left, and is dealing with having to move out in the process. Although grateful for everything she's done for him, Peter decides not to answer, and goes out to blow off some steam instead. These first few pages provide us with a nice, quick way of getting us back into the swing of things, pun completely intended, without too much backstory to drag the narrative down. We soon see Peter walk through some familiar territories, places he has both fond and horrible memories from as a teenager. While this moment was very quick and straightforward, reading it for the first time really made me stop and think about just how far Peter had come in life. How far I had come in my own life, even. Stop me if you've heard this one before, but I've always felt a pretty deep connection to Peter. I was also picked on and bullied as a kid, all the way up until my college years when I finally made some real friends. Seeing him begin to mature was great. It made me feel like I was growing up right alongside him. Fictional character or not, this was someone that made my own life and identity feel more valid, when just about everyone around was causing me to feel the opposite. He even used humor as a coping mechanism to those around him, which is something I've also been known to do. After reminiscing for a bit, like I just did, Peter notices a boy named Joey, getting bullied by a group of other kids. He tries to help, but isn't able to do very much. He's then confronted by the PE teacher, Kyle Jacoby. Kyle tells Peter that Joey has to stand on his own 2 feet, quote-unquote, in order to get by. Peter takes issue with this mentality, but Kyle insists that Joey needs to be the one doing the first kick in order to make it. He uses the phrase, evolve or die, an important and relevant quote we'll come back to in the future. He leaves Peter right after saying that this used to be a nicer place, but that things change. Peter agrees that some things change and some things don't, but at that moment, he also declares that he'll be the change that he wants to see. After going out in costume and scaring the heck out of the bullies from earlier, Peter is suddenly greeted by a strange man. Even more alarming, he calls Peter by his name right off the bat. Peter is so stunned that he can't even begin to analyze the situation at first. A man with powers just like his evaded his spider sense and knew his secret identity. While hopping across some rooftops, the man reveals his name to be Ezekiel. He makes a statement about giving a loaded gun to a child, explaining that the phrase isn't claiming that the child is dangerous, but rather that they simply don't comprehend the power that they hold. This leads us to the next part of Ezekiel's questioning. He asks Peter how he got his powers. Peter, of course, responds by saying he was bitten by a radioactive spider, but Ezekiel's response is more dismissive, implying that he knows something that the rest of us don't. He asks Peter another question, a big question. Did the radiation enable the spider to give you those powers? Or was the spider trying to give you those powers before the radiation killed it? This hits Peter like a ton of bricks. He had never considered another possibility, beyond the one that he had always assumed to be true. What was Ezekiel trying to imply here? What else did he know? Unfortunately, Ezekiel leaves before we get the chance to find out. He does, however, state that he's telling Peter all of this because now is the right time, and that understanding may help him survive what's coming. Emphasis on the may part. After Ezekiel leaves, Peter admits to himself that the reason he didn't feel alarmed by his presence was because he reminded him of his Uncle Ben. Despite this, he still comes to the conclusion that he can't trust anyone around him based on many past experiences, understandably. The final pages of the issue give us a glimpse at a new villain named Morlun. A man named Dex is also with him, trying to help sneak him into the city by boat. We then witness this new mysterious villain feed on a hero named Bunda Sadler. I hope I didn't just butcher that name. After making a surprisingly dark joke about no one having ever heard of a German superhero. Seriously, what? Jeez. He states that they'll be searching for their next target the following day, with a ripped-up newspaper picture of Spider-Man in the final shot. Some things that really stood out to me about this issue right off the bat were the inner monologues that Straczynski placed throughout each scene in the story. We see them in comics all the time, but in the case of this story arc, they felt very personal to me. Sentences like, "The question hits me like a punch in the stomach. All these years, and I had never considered the possibility. I'd never even thought about it. I just assumed. It would be easy to write this scene and simply have Peter say something like, "I don't know. I never considered that thought," and call it a day, like many other writers have in the past. But not Straczynski. Even when reading this story arc through and through, and realizing that you might not like the direction it takes, which I won't spoil here yet, it's hard to deny the sheer heart that goes into each moment. You could tell something very big is coming, even if you don't quite understand what that is just yet. I've heard mixed opinions on John Romita Jr.'s artwork in the past. I admit that he can be a mixed bag for me as well. Some drawings that he does will actually look incredible, while other designs straight up confuse me. What I do love here, and have always loved, is the way that he draws Spidey himself, however. There is just something lively, yet really consistent about the way he looks to me in every drawing here. I also have to give serious credit to the inker Scott Hanna. It's easy for someone to overlook an inker in comic books, as the artist is usually the first thing people gravitate toward, but inkers are just as important for the overall look of a comic panel. Scott Hanna does a particularly nice job, adding reflective surfaces and shine effects over the drawings that could have otherwise had some really bland coloring going in. The two of them make for some great Spidey artwork. And that's going to do it for this video. Thanks again for watching. Please remember to hit those like and subscribe buttons below if you liked what you witnessed, and stick around for more great comic book fun from me, JDOmnislash. Having no life so that you can save yours.